Alright, guys, this is going to be a two-parter, maybe a three. I don't know yet. Alright, so I went through the 6 rules. So I'm going to start back at the top. Alright, always treat the gun if it's loaded. So, as I showed at the prior video, my gun is loaded. I'm going to unload it safely. To show the example. My finger's not near the trigger. Here's my finger. Here's my other finger. Drop the magazine. Drop the clip. Whatever it is you're using, okay? Unload it safely. Now it's a clear firearm. Okay, you can see that. You can see all the way through. Now you can't see through the barrel. Oh no, wait, there you are. Yeah, you can see through it. It is a safe and unloaded firearm. Now to make sure, it says not to do this if you depend on who you ask where you go. But to make sure, you can rack it back, open it up, make sure nothing ejects out. Me personally, I like to dry fire it real quick. Now, I'm at my home. Now it also says point the gun in the safest possible direction. That's rule 2. It's empty. You just saw me unload it. But in this direction, there's a house. In this direction, there's a house. Behind me, there's houses. Now, in front of me, is towards my front door, there's baseball fields. And it's a pretty good distance between the next house across the way. As you noticed, when I went out to dry fire, it went out towards that direction where there's nobody there. I've got several walls that it would have to go through, probably a window. By the time it made it through everything that way, it'd probably land in the middle of the field right before the baseball field, or maybe they're real close to it. I'm not trying to do that. So now it's unloaded. Always point it in the safest direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger. Now, if you notice, I'm sitting here talking, I'm waving this thing around. My finger never hits the trigger unless I'm out here dry firing. And or my intent is to take a life. Okay? My finger never comes towards that trigger. Now, the other finger, if I'm going to hold it, is on top of the trigger card. Okay? See this? Past that, my finger doesn't hit the trigger unless I am ready to do something with it that is needed to be done. Whether it's shooting target, whether it's dry firing, or whether my intent is to take a life. Always know your target. Okay? Now, these guys, they did good about these rules, but listen. If you're in a crowded area, it's very hard not to shoot something else, and it's very hard not to shoot something else when there's a ton of people moving around. Okay? You're probably moving, they're probably scattering so they can get out of the way, get behind something that they feel is going to protect them. And we'll get into cover and concealment probably in a couple of days. So, that being said, I want y'all to understand that, at least for me, what that means is, listen, if you're going to shoot somebody, for instance, you're at the mall, you're at Walmart, you're at a convenience store, whatever the case may be, but there's a lot of people around, and you're carrying your firearm. You got to keep in mind that when gunshots ring off, 90% of the people are going to scatter. You're going to have a lot of movement. You're going to be moving. To be sure you're not going to hit anything, whether it be behind that person or through that person, you need to train. And I'm not talking about once a month down at the firing range. I'm talking about find somebody who's got some land that will allow you to train and move. This way you can practice moving and shooting and hitting your target instead of Granny, the dog, um, your best friend that may be there that you didn't know about. It doesn't matter. So you're not hitting everything else but the target. Okay? You've got to train. End of story. You have to train. Alright, so rule 5. Always know how to operate your gun before you try to shoot it. Now, I think this should have been kind of moved up. Maybe around rule 4, really, truthfully. Um, always know how to operate it. So that means, take the slide back, lock it open, check the firearm, see if there's anything in there, drop it back down, learn how the trigger moves, how much pressure it needs to be done, how to take your magazine out, and ultimately how to break it down. So I'm going to do this real quick. Now it's broke down. I know how to do this, and I can do this in about 10 seconds, 11 seconds on a really good day. And it's breaking it down and putting it back together. But I know how to do this because I do this quite often. So now I'm going to put it back together. Now part of breaking it down and putting it back together is to make sure that everything on the inside looks good, nothing's rusted, nothing's, looks broken or anything like that. Make sure it's oiled. All of those things. All these moving parts are back together, Now it's back up. It's put back together. Now it's back to a functional working firearm. Now I do that every time I tear mine down and put it back together. I dry fire it. There's several reasons for that. One, I can listen to it, see if the mechanics are working properly in here. When I actually shoot, I pay attention to the slide, make sure it's moving properly. I pay attention to the ejection port, make sure it's, ejecting the rounds like it's supposed to be. And I also pay attention to my magazine, make sure that this button right here is not stiff. This way, if I need to swap out, it's an easy, fast process. Okay. All right. Number 6. Always store your firearm safely to prevent unauthorized use. All right, listen, folks. If you follow me at all, I've already done a video about this. One, I don't believe in safes if you're going to keep a firearm in the home. So ultimately, what you have to do is you have to teach your children about this. You need to teach them how to shoot. You need to teach them everything that we just read, that I just said and told you and showed you. You need to teach them everything about firearms. If you feel like you're incapable of doing so, find somebody that is. I don't mind doing it. At the present, I'm teaching my 14-year-old nephew how to do the exact same thing that I just showed you. Break it down, put it back together. So, that's my own personal opinion. I think safes are shit. Again, if you're not keeping it on you at all times, then lock it up. Yes, I carry mine every day. It's an EDC for me. But if you don't, lock it up. Yes, most definitely. You don't need to leave it laying around. You don't need, that's a no-no. Big no-no. I don't leave mine laying around randomly. It's either on my hip or on my nightstand, and those are the only two places unless I'm doing something like this. End of story. So that's about it for that. They have a ton of more information, tips for using or storing a firearm safely, children and firearm safety, teach your child to shoot, adults and gun safety. It goes a little deeper into what we just read off, and then it says additional safety information, and this is where I get that. What was it? Anyway, the other stats or whatever I'm going to be going over in just a second. But anyway, this is American Firearms. Y'all, please check them out. They did not do a bad job. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Their website is americanfirearms.org. Check them out. They did a pretty good job of presenting this out.